In today's video, I'm going to be addressing my most popular, frequently asked questions regarding alcohol ink and resin. If you have your own questions, stick around. Answers are coming up next. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Art with J. Monteith. In today's video, I am just going to be addressing some questions around alcohol, ink, and resin. These are the top questions that I get asked on a regular basis, actually repeatedly. I seem to get asked at least one of these questions every single day. So I thought, you know what, it's just best if I do a video on this and answer all of these questions, and hopefully your questions or concerns will get addressed within this video. So you just want to know a little bit more about that, then hopefully I'll answer your questions here. But first, I just wanted to share with you some information that's going to be happening this year in 2018. I'm really excited. As some of you may know, last year I mentioned on my Instagram that I will be bringing to you a new book, an alcohol ink guide and project on some of the projects that I've done on my YouTube channel, as well as some basic information, how-tos, and steps on using alcohol ink and resin. So I have a book coming out, and then I'm also going to be bringing to you some new online courses for my particular technique. This is my work. Primarily I use alcohol ink on Yupo, and I put them on wood panel, and I finish all of my work with resin. And I get so many questions about the technique and how to do this actual process from start to finish. So I will be coming out with a course, a series of courses later on in the year. So if you're at all interested in any of those, whether it be the book or the courses that I'm going to be offering online, then please feel free to sign up for my newsletter. I'll leave the link in the description box below. So if you want to sign up for that, so you can receive information and updates on my work, and also when those courses and book will be available, then please feel free to sign up for that. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off with the questions around alcohol ink and resin. All right, the very first question that I get asked the most is, why do I use the alcohol ink that I use, particularly Jacquard? And as you know, those of you that follow me on a regular basis, I only use the Jacquard Pinata. There are a lot of new players on the market now. You can buy alcohol inks by Spectrum Noir. You can buy alcohol inks from Artsy, Copic, and a few others are now playing this game. And of course, other than Jacquard, most people buy the Tim Holtz Ranger Adirondack line. So depending, on what it is that you want to do with your alcohol ink, will determine mainly the brand. But I always like to use Jacquard because it provides a really great finish, vibrancy-wise, color-wise. It's just highly pigmented, and I just find that it works really well, especially when you are using resin or you're sealing it with a particular protectant. So if you're using resin, you want to use the Jacquard because it tends to hold really well. It doesn't run and it doesn't fade when you apply resin over top, as well as when you're sealing. So if you're not using resin and you're using a sealer, then I would really recommend a Jacquard. But again, it's totally up to you. Try different brands, and I'm sure you'll find one that works best for you. Also, the other thing I wanted to mention is this little holder. I love this one for the Jacquard. It's great because it doesn't fall. All of your inks will stay in place. They fit snugly in this little holder here. So I'll add that to my link. And again, all of the stuff that I'm talking about, if you want to try any of these things, then I'll leave the link. I only put stuff on my shop page that I've used, that I've tried, that I believe in. I'm not going to just throw up anything up there. So just so you're aware, these are things that I actually use and have tested and work best. This particular holder will only work with Jacquard. Okay, I've had somebody buy this before and they've used Tim Holtz and it doesn't fit, and then they've had to return it. So just keep that in mind. It'll only work with Jacquard. Okay. So these are the inks that I like to use. If you are in Canada, however, I would like to recommend you try this company called Shades of Clay. Shadesofclay.com. They're Canadian. So one of the problems in Canada is finding the larger sizes. You don't want to have to pay, crazy shipping fees online. And this company is awesome. really, really, really good. It ships really quickly, this company too, so give them a go. I really, really highly recommend. And they have great prices too when you want to buy the larger sizes. Okay, so that's done with the inks and the type that I use. All right, the next question that I get asked a lot is what kind of substrate, paper, brand do I use for my alcohol inks? So what you need to know is when you're using alcohol ink, you can use it on any kind of substrate that is non-porous. So you can use it on tiles, ceramic tile, you can use it on metal, plastic, or Yupo paper. So any of those substrates are great because they're non-porous. And Yupo paper is actually not really a paper. It's comprised of plastic composite, so it won't rip or tear. You actually have to cut it. So it's very, very strong and it's non-porous. So it's great for alcohol ink, and it's very, very popular. The brand that is probably the most popular on the market is by Legion, and that is what I use. You can buy it in pad formats. You can also buy it in sheets. So you can go online and buy different weights. There's light, medium, and heavy. I tend to buy the medium weight Yupo paper. If you are in Canada and you have a Curry's art supply store locally nearby, you can go in there, and at the back of the store they'll have their open stock of paper, watercolor paper and canvas and all those kinds of things, and you can buy big sheets of Yupo paper. So I tend to buy those quite a bit. They come in much larger sizes than the pad format. I think the largest you can buy is like 11 by 14 in the Legion pads. So yeah, you can try that and buy it locally if you can. So that's what I would recommend for your Yupo paper. And there you go. So that's answered that question. The next thing I wanted to address is the most popular and frequently asked question around alcohol ink, and that is using products with the actual ink. So these are the questions that I get asked about these particular products, and it surrounds these 4 items. So here you go. These are the questions that I get asked a lot about all of these. So what are all of these? Okay, so let me tell you the differences between these things. So let me talk to you about these 2 products first. So Tim Holtz has an alcohol blending solution, and Jacquard has an extender. These primarily work the same. So it doesn't really matter what brand you buy. They do the exact same thing. And what blending solution or extender does is it allows you more working time with your ink. It doesn't dry as quickly, because when you use alcohol ink, it dries very quickly. This is probably one of the main reasons I like it, because I have hardly any patience when it comes to, waiting on inks to dry. So this will extend that working time. It also produces a nice blending effect. You can integrate the colors really, really nicely together in a soft, billowy kind of effect. And also increases the transparency. It actually labels it and tells you what it does on there. So it gives it transparency as well, but it doesn't take away the sheen. Okay, so that's what these 2 products do. So it doesn't really matter which one you buy. That's what they do. Okay, so there's those 2. The other question is surrounding these 2 products. And one, again, is by Jacquard. It's the cleanup solution. And the other one is just pure alcohol that you can pick up at your local drugstore. And the difference between these 2 is in that if you are sensitive to chemicals and smells and that sort of thing, then you want to buy the Jacquard cleanup solution. I have 0 or hardly any sensitivity to chemical smells, and they don't really affect me. However, if I'm working with the alcohol, it does affect me over time. It is very strong smelling, so you have to open up windows and you have to be in a really well ventilated area. This doesn't have any smell, and again, these work primarily the same. They do the same thing. It will dry your ink a lot more quickly, and it will take the sheen away. So depending on the effect or what you're looking for as a result, it will depend on which of these that you like to use. But that's essentially what this will do. It'll actually pull color away, make it more transparent, but it'll dry quickly and take the sheen away. But again, this is very strong smelling, so if you can afford it, I would honestly pay up and buy the cleanup solution. As well, with the alcohol, you want to ensure that you have a higher content. Like this is 99. I know a lot of people buy 91. Don't buy anything lower if you are going to use the straight alcohol, because there's a higher water content in it, and you'll get a different look. You'll get kind of like pock marks and things like that. So it won't work as well, and you'll get little marks left over. So that's, you know, why I tend to use this as well over the alcohol. Okay, so that's what those products do. So I'm pretty sure I've addressed that as being one of the top questions that I get asked all the time. Okay, so now let's move on to resin product. I've had lots of people come on and tell me, you know what, Jane, you can buy resin much cheaper than the product that you use, and that is, of course, for me, Art Resin. It's the only product that I use. It is a great company. This is founded by a couple by the names of Dave and Rebecca, and I'm sure most of you who follow me probably follow Art Resin. They're a great company, great people that stand behind their product. Which is, you know, one of the reasons that I use it. But the main reason that I use it is because that it is made for artists, for art projects within your home. There's a lot of epoxies out there and a lot of resins that are, you know, highly toxic, highly chemical. They're for industrial use. So, you know, you got to take a lot of safety precautions. You still do, of course, with this particular product, but it has no VOCs. So it's non-toxic. You can use it safely within your home. You know, if you do have sensitivity to chemicals and smells and all that sort of thing, then obviously please, you know, use the proper safety precautions and use the masks and the gloves and all of that stuff. But I have used a lot of chemicals over the last decade. I worked a lot with screening inks and thinners, and let me tell you that that's nothing compared to this. This is an awesome product to use. But the main reason that I use this particular product is, yes, it has UV protectant in it. But a lot of resins, of course, have UV protectant in it. Everybody's changing their formulas and they're obviously improving things. But if you work with alcohol ink, it's extremely important, because alcohol ink will fade if you do not seal it properly and use the proper protectant. So if you're using resin, I use Art Resin because it has the UV protectant in it, but it also has another stabilizer in there called HALS, which is Hindered Amine Light Stabilizer. This is really important to prevent yellowing. It's its only job really within Art Resin, and it's in there to mitigate the process of yellowing, which is imminent over time. It's going to happen even if you have UV protectant in it. You have to have this other stabilizer in it to prevent yellowing. So HALS has been around for a number of decades, I think since the 60s, and there's a lot of information on it. I'm actually going to leave a link down below to the whole process on resin, not just from about Art Resin, but the process in general, why yellowing occurs and what HALS does. So I'll leave that down there, and you can check that out if you want to, you know, learn more about that stabilizer. But that's the main reason that I use it. If you don't use resin and you're just using alcohol ink, the next biggest question that I get asked, just do a little sidetrack here, is what do I seal my work with? And a lot of people who work with alcohol ink will tell you that they use these products by Krylon. They'll use the Archival and the Kmart, and then there's a third one called Triple Thick. So, you know, there's a debate on to which ones to use first, but I do have a video on that, you know, if you want to check that out. But if you're not using resin, then please check out these particular products by Krylon. These are what most people use over their alcohol ink as a sealant. Okay, so that is that question addressed. And then lastly is how to prep your surface and what do I use. I get asked a question a lot with on my Instagram. People see me just putting my pieces on just a flat surface. And what I tend to use a lot is when I'm resining, I will just use black Glad garbage bags. Honestly, these things are great. You just lay them across your surface, and if you want to lay stuff flat on it, the resin will not stick to it. You can just peel it right off these black garbage bags. So it's a really inexpensive way of protecting your surface and obviously, you know, not having to worry about trying to peel off resin when it gets stuck. So this is great to have. Doesn't matter what brand you use, but just black garbage bags, not white, black. If you can afford it, I like to use a little silicone mat. I just picked up locally. The baking silicone mats work really, really well. And then my latest find that I really like, if you can see it under here, is by Contact. It is just a, let me move this over here so you can see it. It's just a little rubber mat here. I don't know if you can see that there. I've used the reverse side. It's pretty big and it covers my entire table. It's just the under sink mat by Contact. This works really, really well. Resin doesn't stick to it either, so it's great. I've been using that for a while and it seems to do a really good job, and it's inexpensive. I think the entire mat was under $10, so I'll leave a link to that as well. Okay, the last question that I need to answer, I get asked a lot, is the problem with the resin when it's fully cured and the bubbles and the dust particles that get into your resin. Now, I know this is really scary for some people when, you know, you have to sand over your pieces, but trust me, when you go over it again with another layer of resin, you will not see any of this. Now, I do have a video on YouTube. It was actually my very first video on YouTube and how to fix resin mistakes. So if you want to check that out, you can. But essentially, you do have to sand it out. Just use a light or fine grit sandpaper. This particular brand comes in several different grits, and it's great because it's like a little sponge. And it works really well in your hand, and again, you can change these little strips on here, and they work really, really well. So you just essentially just lightly sand over the areas that need tending to, and you're ready to go with your next layer of resin. So don't be afraid to do this. It's the only way really to get rid of those imperfections, and then go ahead with another layer of resin. So there you go, guys. That's it for today. I hope I addressed a lot of your questions. Feel free to leave any comments below if I missed something or, you know, something was unanswered. And don't forget to sign up for the newsletter to receive all of the information that I talked about earlier on in the video. So thanks so much for watching today, guys. I hope you found value. Please give this a thumbs up if you did, and have a great day. Thanks so much for watching as always, and we will see you guys again real soon.